Congressman, welcome back to the program. Congratulations on your new position here. Your party is searching for an identity after the election last month. Can you give us an idea of what the party needs to do from here? It's been several weeks. The party's talked about rebranding itself. What do you think is priority number one?
The soul searching is important, and finding our identity has to be priority one. And it's really, I think, to go back to an earlier identity the Democratic Party used to have. If you look at opinion polling going back decades, between the post-World War II era up until about the mid-2010s, people associated the Democratic Party with being the party of working people. And we've got to get back to that. That's how Democrats actually held together a coalition across Texas when Democrats used to win statewide in Texas. And so I think here at the congressional level, we have to start calling out that Republicans are the people that are starting those culture wars, that we don't need to dive into those culture wars as a party, but instead pivot back to saying, we want to make sure that billionaires finally have to pay their fair share in taxes, that corporations that are buying up small businesses not be allowed to do that anymore, and that we've got to stand up not just for those small businesses, but for the everyday worker who is having trouble affording their housing, who's having trouble just putting food on the table and saving some money. So sort of making sure that the core of our message is everyday working people, salaries and wages, and that we're willing to take on the powerful corporate interests here in Washington, D.C.
You talk about the working class, but Donald Trump has successfully stolen the working class from Democrats.
That's right, and we can't let that happen. Now, of course, it was still close. Donald Trump lost working people in his past election, but in this election, he was able to nudge some of that away from the Democratic Party, and we can't have that. And I think to make that shift, to bring working class people overwhelmingly back to the Democratic Party, we've got to show them that we're willing to stand up to the Elon Musks of the world. You know, Elon Musk is getting brought in here as co-president with Donald Trump, and he's just trying to find ways to not make the government more efficient for the people, but to make the government more efficient for himself. So I think that the everyday person who says, you know, why participate in politics? Everybody's the same. Screw this. We got to be able to reach out to that person and show them we're willing to stand up as a Democratic Party to the Elon Musks and Donald Trumps of the world on behalf of the everyday Texan. Progressive caucus members have been willing to stand up to the powerful in the past. And that's why I hope that the progressive caucus members supercharge this rebrand of the Democratic Party back to an everyday people's party.
A lot of people, though, say, listen, the Democrats have just gotten way too far to the left. What do you say to those folks? Some of them are Democrats themselves who just, haven't voted in November, or they voted for a conservative.
When people say, look, we got to move further to the right, or that on some issues we need to move further to the left, I think that that's actually sometimes missing the point, because I think we need to be going straight at the issues of working people. What working people, they're not thinking as much about, oh, where on an ideological, political science spectrum do you fall? No, people want to say, why has the minimum wage not gone up in decades? Why is it that immigration reform proposals have been blocked literally my entire lifetime? Since I've been born, an immigration reform proposal hasn't been able to be passed. People want to say, how is it that profits are so high for these Wall Street hedge funds, but they keep on jacking up housing prices across the state of Texas? Those things may not necessarily just be left and right. It's about our priorities being working people's priorities and people believing us in that respect. And so I don't think that this is necessarily a soul searching about whether the Democratic Party needs to go this way or that way ideologically. I think it's more about substantively addressing what voters are telling us they're dying for us to address.
And if you address working class issues, does that mean you don't address DEI issues, transgender issues, things like that have seemingly defined Democrats over this last election cycle?
Republicans have successfully owned the narrative and defined Democrats on those sorts of issues. And that's a purposeful strategy. Here, let me give you an example. Just recently, Donald Trump wanted to install Matt Gaetz as Attorney General. I mean, as a top law enforcement officer, he was going to try to install somebody that was being investigated by our ethics committee of serious crimes. And so in order to divert voters' attention away from that defining the Republican Party, Congresswoman Nancy Mace tried to file a bill to talk about transgender people and which bathrooms they are and aren't allowed to use inside the United States Capitol. So she filed a whole bill about which marble bathroom people can and can't use in order to incite an entire debate about trans issues that nobody was trying to have. But she was trying to divert attention from the fact that Trump was trying to appoint Matt Gaetz. She was trying to divert attention from the fact that Trump is trying to hand out another billionaire tax cut in the first 100 days of his presidency. So where progressives, I think we need to change, instead of going and engaging directly in that culture war with a cynical person like Congresswoman Mace or Donald Trump, instead of going and just having that fight, we need to tell voters, look, the reason that there's an entire debate happening on your screen right now in the media about which marble bathroom somebody should or shouldn't use on LGBTQ issues, the reason they're doing that is because they don't want attention on the billionaire tax cut they're about to give at your expense. And that, I think, is a way that we can not throw vulnerable people under the bus, because the Democratic Party should not be in the business of throwing vulnerable people under the bus. We got to be able to defend everyday people from discrimination, but refocus on those core issues that the everyday Texan wants to hear us talking about that they don't hear being talked about right now.
As the new chairman of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, you're following in some big footsteps, Bernie Sanders among them there. Well, what is priority number one for you, though, in this role? Because it seems like you have a lot of work to do here.
Priority number one for the Progressive Caucus should be to make sure that we put the working class person at the center of the Democratic Party agenda. Priority number one for Donald Trump, he's already laid it out in his first 100 days, is his billionaire and corporate tax cut. So if the Progressive Caucus can organize not just progressive members, but the entire Democratic Party to fight against that gigantic, needless billionaire tax break, I think that we could stop Donald Trump from being able to do that, because the Republicans have a very thin margin. I mean, they can hardly lose a single vote on this thing. So we could block it. Or if they go through with it, then that could define the election. I mean, we could have Donald Trump losing his ability to pass policy. We could block so much of what he's doing if we're able to really make sure the American people know what he's up to. This is what happened under Donald Trump's last term when Trump tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. He was trying to take health care away from millions of Americans, and progressive members of Congress made that our core focus. We were able to save the Affordable Care Act and ultimately end the Trump presidency over it, I believe.
Congressman, one thing that Republicans have and have had for years is this right-wing media circle. They have cable TV, they have AM radio, they have dominate on social media. Democrats just don't have that. Republicans are successful then in getting their message out. So even if you try to talk about working class, how do you get that message to the people who you think need to hear it?
I think that Democrats need to, of course, still make sure we're talking to the traditional legacy media. That's important. But then we also have to get out of our comfort zone and go and talk to voters where they're at, on the podcast, on social media, on the cultural TV shows where maybe we might not agree with the hosts on every single thing. Who cares? I don't agree with my members of my family on every single thing. The people that I see on the weekend who are my friends on every single thing. We need to be able to make sure that the Democratic Party tent is big enough to include people across geography, across belief systems. But the organizing principle should be that we're against the corruption that I see in Washington, that I see so heavily on the Republican side, that we're against making big corporations even more powerful when most people are just normal people. And I think if we can put that at the center of what we're talking about, then we can go on the Joe Rogan shows of the world. We can be on the podcast. We can be like Senator Bernie Sanders, who, fearlessly went and spoke with a lot of different outlets, regardless of whether he thought they were friendly to them. He was on Fox News regularly. And I think that that's something that Democrats and progressives should be able to do.
Mr. Chairman, we appreciate it. Thanks for the time, and congratulations again to you.
Thank you very much.